What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. After Sound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here on this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, I want to talk about whether or not Splinterlands should leave Hive. But before I jump into that, there's a couple comments here that I think are worth going through. And what I'm referring to is the Splinterlands DHF, so the Decentralized Hive Fund proposal, asking for 500K. I put a video out about it yesterday when it was posted. And so here we are with this. We've had quite a bit of feedback, and I just think it's worth sharing some of the feedback here, and then I'll give a little bit of analysis. But 154 comments, a lot in support, a lot also against. But this is one that stood out to me because this is the real wolf, the person who made Splinter Royale, which is now Earthguard Legends. And if you remember, they had come to the Splinterlands DAO asking for some support a little while back. But they've moved the game off of Hive onto base, as well as renaming it to Earthguard Legends. So let me just read this out to you, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. So to clarify a few things, as myself and the project I'm building were somehow mentioned in this proposal, the primary reason I chose EVM over Hive is fundamental. Hive does not support EVM smart contracts. EVM is Ethereum virtual machine contracts. Yet, smart contracts are the backbone of decentralized games, and EVM is the de facto standard. One could build their own L2s, but that's a lot of redundant work. Earthguard Legends is currently on the base testnet, but it could technically be on Arbitrum, Ronin, Oasis, or any other L2, L3 EVM compatible chain. I've also not received any grants from base. Their only incentives so far are gas credits. The secondary reason is that I believe EVM is the future, and becoming a proficient Solidity smart contract developer has been a personal goal of mine for years. Now, to also clear up any confusion about the rebranding of Earthguard Legends, the primary reason for the game rebranded from Splinter Royale to Earthguard Legends, besides the clear lack of funding and support, was for independence. As you can see from the new proposals, the future of Splinterlands is sadly uncertain. While I hope everything works out, building a game is difficult. Add in the technical challenges of Web3, and it's even more difficult, making the game also dependent on another ecosystem where the mother game is struggling itself is quite simply too much. With this said, Hive is still like family to me. Being dragged into this as an argument as the first official response and mention for Splinterlands to the project I've been working on for over a year would be funny if it weren't so sad. P.S. I know that VSC is being built on top of Hive, which has planned EVM support. I appreciate their work, I really do, but for their game, I need production ready EVM compatible L2, L3 now, not in a few months or years. So I found this fascinating because there's a little bit of salt in there, if you guys could tell. At least I read it that way. But for a game that was being built on Hive and was trying to utilize Splinterlands assets, Splinterlands tokens, I mean, it was a complete 180 by Wolf. I don't blame Wolf one bit. Not so, and this is like subjectively speaking as a Splinterlands player, as well as objectively speaking as somebody who just follows this space, right? I think moving away from Hive was probably one of the smartest things, and trying to go to the community and DAO and see if you can get support, like, it's rough, man. I mean, you know, not that maybe the proposal should or shouldn't have passed. All I'm saying is that there isn't as much support within the community for other stuff that's being built, at least not enough, right? And if you want to go somewhere where you can get, you know, access to hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of players that are all looking for games, I mean, Base, I think, is one of the best chains, right? At least right now. So going through this, let me just see if there's any other comments that I think are worth calling out here. Again, there were a lot that are obviously in support of it, but they're all going to be names that you probably recognize. But there are also a lot of ones that are not. I mean, they were very, I think they hurt, they bite because there is an air of truth to them. So let's see here. Move on some. So see, someone here is saying, move Splinterlands to Ronin. You'll sell 5 million packs in a day. There are money and people that love games. This Hive people are losers and they will fail in this bull run. Then you have Freedom Purpose saying, the proposal is interesting. In my opinion, the first and biggest error was to raise the price of packs to $4 and then even higher with the suggestion. After all, and then, okay, it goes on to talk about all the other issues that came up. Now, again, there's here's someone else. I will vote on the proposal, although I believe the future of Splinterlands lies in another chain. The way you present the proposal, I think you hope it doesn't get approved because I'm sure you know the game would do better in other lands. I think that could put an end to the issue of fictional players bleeding the project dry, but deep down, I would like to see Splinterlands succeed on this chain, which is a real challenge. You can count on my help. Let me see. You say it yourself. The problem is that, okay, blah, 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 blah. Lots of interesting stuff here. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop there because, like I said, there's a lot that are for it. There's a lot that are against it. And what it's come down to, you can see that there was one going back and forth here a lot where you see a lot of names that you'll recognize, right? Like Lord Butterfly, Femisapiens, that just go back and forth about Hive versus Splinterlanders. And I forgot where it was, and I don't want to keep scrolling a bunch, but like there's a lot of sentiment around like Hive did a lot for Splinterlands, but Splinterlands didn't really do much for Hive. And what's funny is I think both sides of this argument genuinely believe their side, right? And maybe even have arguments to kind of show it, because when Splinterlands was popping off, people were just talking about Splinterlands, right? We weren't really talking about Hive, but that's kind of the nature of what it is. Like, at the end of the day, I don't think that Splinterlands needs to go out and be promoting Hive, right? Like, that's not Splinterlands' responsibility, in my humble opinion, right? And I know this is going to get me in trouble with a lot of Hivers out there, but that's not Splinterlands' responsibility. If somebody builds a new game on Ethereum, like, are they going out and touting how awesome Ethereum is? No, people just know that Ethereum is awesome, and that's why they're building there, right? Like, so I get the argument coming in of like, well, Splinterlands isn't really doing much to talk about Hive. But that's not what Splinterlands is trying to do. Splinterlands is trying to bring in people to Hive to use Hive, right? Every new player that comes in could be somebody like myself or somebody else who buys, owns, and stakes Hive, right, as HP, right? I don't know how much HP I have, but I've definitely been accruing it over the years now to the point where I'm able to post a lot, or I mean, I do post a lot and get some from that. I'm able to have enough resource credits, right? I'm able to do certain things around and in Hive because of that. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, right, because we're getting bogged down in the weeds here, and I talked about this on a recent live stream. At the end of the day, I look at this and, somebody made a comment of saying, like, this sounds like a threat, right? Matt's proposal, where it's just like, give us the money or we walk. And in a way, I'm of the mindset where I'm ready for Splinterlands to leave Hive. Now, I know, so much easier said than done. I don't do any coding. I have no idea what the workload would look for something like that. But I do believe that there are better opportunities elsewhere. And as much as I like Hive, I think it's a great community. I think that there's a lot. I think that Hive culture, unfortunately, as a whole, can be very toxic. And we've seen that play out in many instances with downvoting and such, right? And we see that whether you're in Splinterlands or even further into Hive. And I think a lot of that culture then comes into the Splinterlands culture, right? Because it's so like stake weighted and based, and therefore people just feel like they have so much control because of that. And so we don't get to have like proper full conversations, in my opinion, because a lot of times people will just vote with their stake, which is fine. That's exactly what they're supposed to do, but it doesn't leave a lot of opportunity to kind of have everybody come to the table and just talk through what is the best path forward, right? It's a lot of, I'm gonna take my ball and go home, or I'm going to, vote with the full weight of my stake against this and shut you down and talk to all the other whales and whatever the case is. And again, that comes from Hive, right? That comes from the culture of Hive. And I'm not saying that wouldn't exist in other similar types of chains, but at the end of the day, that culture has permeated into Splinterlands. And I'm not the biggest fan of that. As much as I like Hive, as much as I like the people that I've gotten to know on Hive, I think that it's time for us to move on. Like I said, I know easier said than done. And in the live stream, I talked about probably my top two choices would be Solana and Base. And you could see for ETHGuard Legends, right, they moved to Base. Now, I'm a big fan of Base. I think that they're doing a lot of interesting things. They are also backed, obviously, by Coinbase, which is the biggest, or sorry, not one of the biggest exchanges in the world. They are regulated by the U.S. and they, I mean, Coinbase is custodying a ton of the Bitcoin ETFs. So there's a lot behind there, and I'm not saying that things can't blow up, I mean, FTX style or Terra Luna style. But I am saying at least at the end of the day, there is a known quantity, a known entity there where I like the Solana ecosystem. I like the Solana community. I think they're really passionate. But if I had to choose between both of them, I would probably go with Ethereum. Ethereum and one of the layer twos, right? So Base ideally, but Arbitrum and Optimism are fine too. So again, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm merely just talking about the fact that I think that there are bigger, better opportunities elsewhere. And if this proposal ends up being the kind of like line in the sand that has to be drawn, and maybe Matt didn't intend it for it to come out that way, but people are definitely reading it that way. My hope, and again, I voted for it. So let me be very clear. I voted for it, but if it doesn't pass, I'm okay with it. And I really hope the team would consider exploring other opportunities, here's the thing, whether there are incentives or not. And I know it's a ton of work, and obviously we would need some of those incentives to come in and help, fund the game to build and to migrate on these other chains. But just looking at the success that many other games have had launching on chains that are much more popular, that have the volume, the TVL, the assets, right? It's something to me that makes way more sense. And I think it could present a brand new and probably very exciting chapter for Splinterlands. I don't know what it would look like. It would probably be messy and chaotic and hectic, and you probably get even more FUD coming in. But at the same time, if they're able to complete it and migrate over to a new chain, it would represent a new dawn, right? Like the amount of exposure, the amount of potential support, the amount of collaboration that could be done with other projects being run on, the same chains. I mean, it could be phenomenal in my opinion. So I know, like I said, easier said than done. I'm just a talking head, right? But it's something that I have actively started to think about more and to actually hope for, because I think there is a possibility, at least, based on what Matt is saying. And I'm not the only one reading it that way. A lot of Hivers are reading it that way. And, there's just this weird animosity between Hive and Splinterlands. And I always knew it was there. I feel like I've talked about it in the past, where I felt like Hivers didn't really like or almost resented Splinterlands, because it's like they looked at Splinterlands as like, oh, you're getting a little too big for your shoes here, right? You're acting bigger than the chain. And in many ways, Splinterlands had every right to act that way. They were like a top app that had attracted so much attention. Yes, a lot of it was bots, but it doesn't matter. There were people and capital that was coming into the game at the height of the last bull run. So, again, sorry, I'm just digressing now. My whole point with this is I would actually like to see the game move on from Hive, with no ill will to Hivers, but it's just the benefits outweigh the cons, right? The pros outweigh the cons. Although I'll be, like I said, I'll be transparent. I don't know what the cons fully are in terms of how to quantify them in terms of how much manpower, resources, capital it would take to actually do that. But if it is an option, and Matt is considering it, and again, as long as he's not bluffing in his post, it seems like he is. That would be my hope, that we would leave and potentially go to Base or Solana. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That is all I have for you guys in this video. Otherwise, I'll catch you all in the next one and see you around the game. Take care.